everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Ecoffee with Experts. I'm your host, Matt Fraser. And today on the episode, I have with me a very special guest, Maciej Fita with Brand Dignity.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about how local businesses can stand out and attract new customers by developing a powerful brand. So, Maciej, welcome to the show.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur? Like, has it been in your blood since you were young?
You know, actually, I have back in, I grew up skateboarding, and in sixth grade, I tried to start a skateboard company. And obviously, I'm too young to make it, really happen. But I used to love the idea of watching these guys on these videos back then with the logos on the hats and the logos on the shirts and the logos on the skateboards. And I thought it was just so cool. So I've always had like this, branding kind of brain and marketing. And so at a young age, I tried to attempt something, but what can you really do when you're 10?
Yeah, exactly. So when did you first decide you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Like, how old were you? What was the situation that brought that about?
I've always liked the idea of it. It is a scary leap to make. But at some point in my life, I knew I had to do it. Yeah. So I was working at an SEO agency in Boston, and I was a marketing. Actually, I just started as kind of like a beginner SEO specialist. I had just gotten into the industry, and this was right before the 2008 marketing crash happened, or real estate crash. And I absorbed a lot of positions at that agency. I started wearing a lot of different hats and learning a lot. And I just, I learned so much in such a short period of time that I kind of wanted to just kind of go out and be a digital marketing freelancer. And one of the things that I loved doing was offering turnkey programs for clients where we really put together multi-pronged programs to hit, every corner, as many corners as we could. So it was maybe roughly in my early 20s when I kind of took the leap of faith and saw what could happen.
Oh, that's awesome. So in 2010, you founded Brand Dignity.
Yes.
What motivated you to start your own marketing agency as opposed to being a freelancer or working for somebody else?
I was dabbling with a couple different businesses right before that, kind of, some side gigs and some side hustles. And I love the marketing aspect of it. And I was doing marketing as a full-time job at the time. And so it got to a point where there wasn't really anywhere further up for me to go within this agency. And I knew, to make a better life for myself, I kind of had to jump out there and start, my own thing. And I kind of ran it as a freelancer for a while. I've always surrounded myself with really good partners to help execute workload as I grew. So it's an agency. We have a couple of employees, but we do partner up with a lot of people that specialize in certain things.
That's awesome.
It's a model that's worked well.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned branding and skateboarding and things like that. And I mean, I used to have a Tony Hawk skateboard, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I wish I had it to this day. It'd probably be worth a lot of money. So you mentioned branding. So I know it's one of the things you do, but so can you tell me, how can a local business attract more customers with a strong branding strategy?
I think it comes down to personality. I think sometimes you get a local business that will just want to slap up a website that their cousin built, and they think that it's going to all of a sudden change the world for them. And it just, it doesn't work that way. Not these days, maybe in the early days of the internet, maybe it might have. But it's good to give your brand a personality. And I think a website allows that to happen. If you're a fun group of people running a local business, the website is the way to showcase that. And it shows that there's a personality behind the business as well. So it's I think it's good for potential customers to see that. They might bump into the website and be like, oh, this looks like a fun group of people. Let's check them out. And if the follow up after that within the organization is good, then it all clicks and connects.
So then, how can a local or small business create a powerful brand that stands out on their website? What are some of the things they should do?
Obviously, everything down to identifying, what colors work best for your business and who you're trying to attract. having a great logo that's memorable and that's up to date and modern. And then just having a kick butt website that holds all this together. That's always evolving. I mean, I think a lot of small businesses forget about that. Websites are a journey. There really is never a finish line, and it's good to always be building out that footprint. And I'm always putting my SEO hat on whenever I do this because that's just kind of my background. So I'm always thinking about what blog should you be writing to attract new customers? How should you position your social media? If there's different industries you're targeting within your local business, let's get industry pages there because people will search for industry specific keywords. So it's really just about kind of constantly finding that personality and building out that footprint of that site.
So if they're thinking about a logo, I mean, what are some of the ways that a small business can go about getting a logo that's like that you described, that's modern, that looks good, that's represents their brand? Is there any questions they should be asking themselves, or any resources you can share that
there's all these different ways. Yeah, there's all these different ways to put a logo together, whether it's just an icon, whether it's just words. It really just comes down to kind of doing your research first, digging around. I think inspiration in the early days is important. For example, we're doing a company right now that cleans solar panels, and they want it to be corporate and professional, but still have like a modern fun flair to it. So we did a big exercise where we just kind of went through sites like Pinterest and some of these other ones that just looking for inspiration, seeing what they like. Sometimes local businesses don't really know the different types of styles of logos out there. They might just think that putting words down is the only thing to do. But there's so many different twists and variations you can do to really kind of make that mark modern and represent their business properly.
How can local businesses make sure their branding efforts communicate the right message to their potential customers?
Sometimes that just takes a little bit of time to figure out. You got to kind of figure out what your business proposition is, and if you're kind of expressing that properly, whether it's through taglines or through website copy. But sometimes that's a hurdle that you got to jump over a couple times until you kind of figure it out. I've seen clients rebuild websites and they're constantly changing taglines until they get something that they really like.
Okay. How can they find out if their message is resonating, their brand message is resonating with their target audience? Are there certain ways to do that, like testing methodology that you recommend to use?
I think it's a combination of just simply asking sometimes. If you have family members, we have a lot of clients that would just ask, family members, like we'll do a mock-up on something. Hey, let's, if they got a big enough family, some people would love to take a look at it and give their feedback and be like, yes, no. Internally within the company is also great. Have that logo go around to different employees or the website mock-up and just get everyone's opinion, get everyone's feedback, and then just kind of, analyze all that feedback and see what you could do to make the tweak. Because sometimes you'll have someone internally that has a really great idea. Doesn't always, small local businesses, the owners tend to do a lot of the decision making, but sometimes you can have an employee there that's going to have a great idea. So I think it's just simply asking sometimes. And sometimes you're going to have customers that are cheerleaders that love working with you. And if you have a close relationship with them, I've worked with a lot of local businesses here, even from things aside from marketing. And, I've become friends with some of these people. And, sometimes we just kind of toss ideas off each other, even if they're not working with us.
Yeah. So would you say like customer surveys could be an idea, or maybe even posting on your Facebook page and saying, this A or B, which one do you like better? And getting your fans or your followers to whoever they call them now.
I guess it really depends on how big of a follower base you have. Because sometimes you could do, it could fall on deaf ears, and it's tough. It's tough to get those surveys sometimes to be responded to. I get stuff from Amazon all the time. Here's $100 gift card to talk to us for an hour, and I'm just like, I don't know, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, well,
it's $100 is $100, but it's just like I don't know, I don't have time or whatever. So. If you have a good follower base, if your local business has been around for a while and maybe you've been collecting email addresses and you have a decent sized list, sometimes sending an email will help. I guess it depends on what kind of area you live into. If you're in a fast bustling city, a lot of people don't have time for this stuff. If your business is in a more rural area, maybe businesses might take the time to respond to that survey. But oftentimes it's a multi-pronged process, and you got to try different things until you get people's attention.
So from beginning to end, like someone comes to you with whether a new business or an established business, whatever, but how much time would you say goes in from the conception to the finished product of developing a brand for a small business?
It varies greatly. We've had some clients that first mock-up, perfect, let's move. Interfaces, perfect, let's move. First mock-up of a logo, perfect, let's move. And then you got some that will, have revision requests for 9 months on a font. So it just depends, and it's tough. It's tough. You get it from both ends of the spectrum. But you get some that move really fast, and some just move a little bit slower.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And what do you think is the most important aspect for creating a strong brand for a local business?
Strong aspect, I look at it as a whole package. I think a kick butt website that's smooth and modern, up to date is really important. I think people lose sight of that sometimes, because that's the most important thing. That's where your community is going to really congregate to learn more about who you are, whether they trust you. The trust is a big part, especially with some, let's say you're like in real estate and, construction and stuff. People always get burned and this and that. So, if you don't have a presence at all, that sometimes is daunting. But if you have a really nice website, testimonials, just really describing your work, and just having those trust factors and trust signals in place, along with, just a really modern website and a nice logo, I think that's usually a good starting point.
What would you say are some of the must-have elements then to having a kick-butt website? That you've seen that are effective over the years that you've been doing this?
Call to actions for sure. If someone's scrolling down the page, they should be able to communicate with you multiple times. They shouldn't have to go back up and look for it. It should be really easy for people to be able to submit a lead, or if it's an e-commerce site, make a purchase. Usually small local businesses is more on the lead generation side of things. But the trust factors are important. I always try to get clients to see if they can get video testimonials. Even just a couple can sometimes help a lot. Or just even regular testimonials is always important. And, aside from the website, things like Google My Business are huge. Those Google Maps listings, I try to get every client to just don't worry about, get them to put their review there, and then you can copy and paste it and put it on your site. So those local, I've had a couple clients that cleaned up their local listing page, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, we're starting to get some leads to this page. So there's a lot of external things that I haven't really touched upon. I keep touching upon the website because that's kind of the foundation. But I think a combination of the website and then local Google Maps listing stuff is really important for driving business.
The Google Business Profile.
Yeah.
So how can they make sure they have consistency across all these different, like there's so many different channels and so many different mediums for marketing, Google My Business, Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the GMB, the Google Business Profile, they call it now. How can they maintain, are there any tools or resources you would recommend for maintaining brand consistency across all those different avenues?
Yeah, there's a lot of software programs out there that you can connect, like Hootsuite is a big one. Heyorka is a big one. And you just sync up with all your channels, and it really just comes down to organization. With those websites, they make it very easy for you to, blast out a message to, 6 to 10 different social media channels in one click of a button, which will help, with timing for clients so they don't have to go and log in all these different programs. But I think it's just organization and having some scheduling in place, having, even if it just comes down to the bare minimum of a spreadsheet. What are you doing on May? What do you want to do in June? and then just start going through and checking things off and making sure things are in motion. I think that sometimes is the daunting task for a small business owner to try to tackle themselves, because there's so many different things you got to do throughout the day that don't, might be away from the computer. So slip by the wayside quick.
So using some scheduling software or doing a little bit of work up front to be able to have those things still go live when you're not actually present in the. Do you recommend creating like a brand library or something like that of content?
It depends. Yeah, I always recommend that everyone does something with content for their marketing. It just depends on how big of an organization they are. I think small businesses usually just have, kind of a blog. But if they're very savvy and they're doing, maybe they're doing podcasts, maybe they're doing different events that they're recording. And if you have that stuff, having a kind of an asset library would be really good, especially for SEO, because then every one of these assets could sit on their own page. Then each page slowly becomes indexed, and eventually people start bumping into this stuff and become an entrance way into their site. So that just leads me back to that, site map. Increasing the footprint of the size of your site is important. Like, we have a blog. I think we've got maybe like 2,500 blogs on there, but it's like 10 years. Yeah, and there's some really good traffic that comes in residually on a monthly basis from.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was checking out your site. I read quite a few of your articles. In regards to brand identity and the visual aspect of it, what about the messaging, the brand messaging? What is your process for helping a small business create a brand message that resonates with the market?
We have a questionnaire that the clients fill out that allow us to start kind of putting our thinking caps on, and then once we kind of get through it and process all the information that they've provided us, we start to think about maybe how the logo should look, or what the tagline should say, or what the homepage header should really say to grasp, because you got 2 seconds to grasp someone's attention when they get to that site. So it's a process of just kind of going through first what they give us. If they can, sometimes clients provide us a lot of information in those questionnaires, which is really good, because then we have a lot of ammo to work with, and we can move and pivot pretty quickly in different ways if they want to switch things up. But it just comes down to putting our thinking caps on and putting some ideas together and getting that ball rolling.
Do you use like voice of the customer research, things like that for, going, for instance, if it was a plumber going on to HomeStars or Home Advisor or Yelp or whatever the avenue, the directories are, or even Google My Business for a competitor, and finding out what customers are saying about what they like and don't like about the industry to try and develop the brand message?
Yeah, I mean, we work with quite a few small local businesses where we kind of know some of that stuff. Like, we've worked with a lot of plumbers, actually, and electricians, and sometimes we know the typical gripes that clients have with some of these businesses. So we definitely factor that in into the equation.
So here's a question I have for you. You mentioned you work with various plumbers. How do you, as an agency, when one plumber comes to you, how do you avoid cookie cuttering the same brand messaging as a plumber and not come up with a site that's just anotherplumber.com, and like creating a unique, their unique brand message for who they are as a plumber and their company, as opposed to another company, and not having a conflict of interest of cloning what you already did?
Yeah, it's a good question. And we do get that sometimes. One of the things that I like to look at is, every company's got their unique elements. Sometimes we'll get a plumber that's been a family-owned 3-generation company, and they haven't updated their website in 15 years. And when you go to it, it's just like an old template. And, that 3-generation, been around for 30 years, messaging would be applied to their kind of brand message to, that instills confidence. And then things like making sure if it's a big enough team, we want to get, images of all the plumbers and the owners and everyone on there. And sometimes even getting their resume on there and show their experience level.
Oh yeah.
But then when you get maybe a new company that just started, it's 2 people and they've been around for a year, then you got to get creative with the messaging, and try to stand out a little bit, especially when there's not a lot of testimonials yet and not a lot of assets to work with. Then you just try to, really just position them as an expert in their area and kind of slowly build up those assets.
How does developing an effective brand fit in with developing a unique selling proposition? For instance, you mentioned the family-owned business that's been around for 30 years and then the one-year startup. Can a one-year startup build a brand based on a unique selling proposition that dominates the market? And have you seen anything like that? And since we're talking about plumbing, and I just throw plumbing because everybody talks about plumbing when they use examples like Dallas Plumber or whatever. Like, I've seen one USP for a plumber, like the on-time plumber. He guarantees that he'll be on time and there's no overtime charges and so on and so forth. Can something like that create a strong brand for a business?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I think that's, that's just a hurting point for customers. A lot of times, you might call a plumber and they'll show up 3 hours late. So and I've seen that too. Like sometimes they'll guarantee that they'll be there, on time, or they receive $100 off their consultation or their service or whatever it might be. So you gotta dig around and look for some of that stuff that maybe some of the newer people are providing. So you can get creative with that value proposition.
Are there any examples? Like you don't have to reveal the name of the company, but are there any examples you can share that you've seen that garner results, or like a case study, like wow, this really blew up their business developing this brand with this USP and so on and so forth?
Not every plumber we work with, we do a brand development. So we've had, it's probably like a 50-50 split where sometimes they just come aboard for SEO and content marketing and they just have their website built. But the one case study that I have, and this isn't, it's a combination of multiple things. But one of the things that I usually recommend for a small local service provider, like a construction company or a plumber or electrician, is geo-targeted pages for the regions that they want to go after. That can really help with the way that people look at, so if you're Austin, Texas plumber, you create a page and speaking to the people that live there, because you might speak differently to the people that live there than someone that lives, 100 miles away that's in a more rural area. So, that's part of the brand part of working with some of these clients, and you got to kind of like really think about and see what would happen. But we have seen some really great results for clients that do break out that sitemap and get some geo-targeted pages, especially for some of the plumbers that we've worked with.
So I can imagine that developing effective copy would be an important element of developing this. Are there any copywriting tips or formulas that you use that you found to be beneficial?
With not really formulas, but I think certain businesses are so dry, it's good to try to, have some light, airy kind of fun copy. So we try to put that spin on some of the clients we work with, especially with plumbers, have some personality to the copy, because you put 10 plumber websites together, most of their copy is going to be the same, we'll fix your dreams in 24 hours, this and that. So it's important, I think, to it's important to, I think, put some personality into it and make it fun. I think people want to see that sometimes. Sometimes it's tough to do, like in the accounting field, but because we work with some accountants and we try that kind of copy, it doesn't work well.
Yeah, that is one of the most boring businesses. Is how do you make accounting sexy? You got any tips on that? Like how you've done that?
You can't. We had this one client. She was actually in Texas, and she was like an accounting consultant, and she made a really fun website, and she had pictures of herself all over the place, professional photos. So there's ways to do it.
Okay. I guess I was referring to the formula for the AIDA, the attention, interest, desire, and action copywriting formula. I was just curious if you use that formula when working with clients to develop some of these things, or the PAS, the problem agitate solution formula for coming up with those using those formulas, copywriting formulas, to like strategize and come up with a brand message.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times the copy will be split into sections where it's like problem, solution, how we're going to fix it and maybe our experience fixing it. I guess it depends on the service too, because like some of the geo-targeted pages are more general. So we're not really talking about, because we might be trying to squeeze in like 9 different things that Plumber does on that one page. So I didn't want to have like a long scrolling page. So we kind of summarize a little bit. But definitely like header text and like immediately the text that comes under a header, we try to get kind of witty with it and cheeky sometimes to really grab their attention.
What about the power of video in developing brand?
I'm not sure what that is.
So like for instance, using video, like have you used video, like video production or developing a video, because the videos tell stories and brands are all about stories. So I imagine like that's such a powerful tool. I just wanted to elaborate on, and if you've had your experience in that.
Yeah, the sticking point sometimes with the video stuff is cost. Because if you local, a lot of times you got to get a videographer out there, or you got to get someone that does drone footage. Like some cool shots that we've recommended, especially for big, and I'm just going to use plumbers again, but like a bigger plumbing agency that has 30 techs and 10 internal office. You get everyone out in the parking lot with the trucks parked around and get a good video of a drone flying around it. That stuff is really big for confidence building, especially if you get that. Sometimes I get people to put it in the back of the header so it plays when they first get there.
Like the video background sort of deal.
Yeah. I mean, I always push video. The problem is it's the production stuff. A lot of small businesses don't want to get too involved with it. But I love getting like videos of maybe the president or the CEO of the plumbing company talking. Maybe get that on the page. Even sometimes getting like a tech that specializes in one area of plumbing that they send out to for a lot of jobs talking about it. Video testimonials are always great. I always push for those. I don't even care what the quality of the video is for those. Just if the customer's there and they were happy, pull out your iPhone, and the quality is usually pretty good there. And then someone can clean it up usually pretty easily. But that stuff is very powerful.
Yeah. I imagine there's so many good ideas you just shared there. Interviewing the business owner. Well, doing the drone idea is awesome. Using the interviewing the business owner and maybe making a video about how he got started. Could just be him talking. Interviewing the employees, customer testimonials. That's all awesome stuff. Is there any way to like make video? Do you think the future of video? What do you think about the future of video in regards to its accessibility? Do you think it's going to become less costly? Like, for instance, the availability of stock video footage, not having to use them, and the cost of video equipment. Like I have a Canon M50 Mark II, and it was, I can't even remember how much money it was, but it's the most popular camera for YouTubers to use, and it's not a $10,000 camera, that's for sure. So do you think it's going to get there?
I think it is. I think it's getting there already. There are some websites out there that you can start to play around with videos. Sometimes they look a little too stock footagey, if that's the word. So I try to stay away from that because it's it doesn't have that personable component to it that I think the videos should have. But I do think it's getting easier. There's sometimes people that do the drones don't charge a crazy amount of money. I guess it depends on the scope of the project too. If you got to get a production team out there to do a big winded commercial or something like that, those will, I think, always have a cost component to them. But sometimes those quick inner office videos could happen on a smaller scale.
I think that this is like, what do you think, like when they consider that? I mean, yes, it's expensive, but what about the return on investment? I think you got to frame it that way, that, I mean, this video is not just going to be there for one day or a month. Like this thing could be on your YouTube channel for years and be used in advertising to actually get your return on investment, whether it's through YouTube ads or Facebook ads or whatever, to actually get your brand awareness out there to generate business and not just an expense.
Yeah, it's tough. Sometimes it's tough to connect the dot on that ROI. It's not like in a Google AdWords account. A Google AdWords account that has tracking pixels in place and we can see what ads converted.
Yeah.
So it's a little tougher sometimes to connect those dots on the ROI part, but yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I mean, some of these YouTube videos, if you optimize them properly, especially posting them on YouTube and getting those titles and descriptions written properly, you can get those things ranked in Google search. And it's just another asset. It's another doorway. It's another pebble in the river that someone can step on.
Yeah, exactly.
Use that more.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Hey, so customer loyalty is a key, obviously, for businesses striving for longevity. Do you have any suggestions on ways to foster customer loyalty that small businesses can do to keep clients?
Keep the communication going. A lot of times businesses don't collect email addresses, and an email list can be very powerful depending on what type of service or what kind of business you have. If it's a restaurant, it could be really powerful because people need to eat every day. So if you're able to keep up with the communication and offer different specials and different things happening in different products, or maybe it's a new menu, or maybe it's a new plumbing service, just keeping that communication open. I mean, customer loyalty programs are always kind of an easy answer to say, and they do often work. Not as much, digital marketing related, but, there's a lot of websites out there where you could facilitate a customer loyalty program. Get cards in their wallets and swiping them every time they come to the store. People love that, especially if they get, there's a restaurant that we go to here locally, and, after so many swipes, you get a $30 gift certificate in the mail. And
that's pretty good.
Hey, that's $30 off one meal. So that's one of the reasons we like going. The food's amazing too, but that stuff does work. So I think just, keeping customer loyalty programs and constant communication is important.
Yeah, I hear you. I worked in restaurants for quite a few years. So marketing for restaurants, it comes so easy to me. And I find so many restaurants underutilizing many things. For instance, having a birthday club where there's a table 10 card on the table and they scan the QR code to enter to join the birthday club, to get a free coupon for $25 off with we'll bring 3 people in on your birthday, 3 other people, and get $25 and get you eat for free. Mm-hmm. That's very easy for them to do, and yet we create loyalty and so on and so forth. So what is one big takeaway you want listeners to get from this episode?
It's just realize that, marketing success, digital marketing success is always multi-pronged. I think sometimes people want to, let's say they want to hire SEO and think that's the only thing that they ever have to do again. It just doesn't work that way. Digital marketing is an ecosystem. Somebody might bump into your social media account one day, and then 2 days later bump into your Google ad account and make the connection. And it's just it should always be multi-pronged. You should have, different ways of your, social, and it doesn't have to get too expensive, but just having the core channels in place, steady stream of email marketing, good SEO, blogging content, some paid ads, social media. And that's usually a good starting point for, small local businesses. And from there, as things grow and kind of prosper, then you can start to think about some of the more advanced stuff.
Awesome. So where can our listeners find out, how can they connect with you?
You can check out our website. It's branddignity1d.com.
Okay.
Come check it out, read our articles, send me a message just saying hello if you want. And
fantastic.
Are
you on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, anything like that?
Yeah, we're on all of it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you come to our website, all of our icons are in the footer, so you can connect.
Click there and right on. Well, hey, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure having you here, and have a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun. Thanks, Matt. Have a good one.